Welcome to our review of the new Sony A7S mirrorless camera. Sony hasn't just improved one or two aspects of its A7S series. With the new A7S III, it's made an across-the-board set of upgrades that result in a camera that's the best of its kind. It handles beautifully for video thanks to its articulating screen and touch display, while a full-sized HDMI port and excellent IBIS head the list of other treats. With huge improvements to handling and connectivity, a pin-sharp viewfinder, and, of course, hugely impressive low-light performance across both video and stills, it's the finest hybrid video camera you can buy. Sony teased this on the Sony ZV-1, but now it's finally made its way to an A7 series camera. Perhaps an even bigger deal for frustrated Sony fans is that it's finally opted for a full-touch UI, making interaction with the camera much more intuitive. Being a Sony camera, the A7S III also delivers excellent, customizable autofocus, with 759 phase detection AF points and eye tracking across animals and humans, which Sony claims to be 30% faster than on the A75 II. With images captured at sensitivities between ISO 2000 to 4000 looking like they were shot nearer 200 to 400, the A7S III is a liberating camera to use, and, naturally, you can boost the ISO much higher. Sony has also improved focus speeds on the A7S III, and it partly puts this down to the sensor sensitivity performance, which enables the camera to identify subjects in lower light than sensors with inferior sensitivity. When it comes to power, the new Z battery delivers what Sony claims to be a 60% performance improvement over the Sony A7S Mark II's NPFW50, which translates to up to 95 minutes of video capture, on paper. While we had a fair amount of variability in our device's battery life, it comfortably captured 4K video for in excess of 75 minutes in our tests, which is great going compared to much of the competition. The sticking point with the A7S III is always going to be price. It's a hefty investment, especially if you want to couple it with decent glass and fast storage, but the camera itself is the best in its class. Video-focused cameras tend to cost more than comparable stills cameras, however, and at the price the A7S III is in good company with the 6K Panasonic S1H, which costs about $3,999. The A7S III is also launching alongside Sony's new CF Express cards, which deliver read speeds of 800 MB/s and write speeds of 700 MB/s. Perhaps a bigger deal for longtime Sony devotees, and indeed critics, is that the company has finally opted for a full-touch UI, and it works beautifully. These design and ergonomic changes are coupled with other impressive flourishes as you work your way around the body of the camera, from the full-sized HDMI port to the inclusion of a dedicated record button on the top plate. It's hard to find anything to complain about when it comes to the refreshed design of the A7S III. It really does feel like a compromise-free zone for video, but we'd expect nothing less at this price. With competition from Canon climbing up to 45 megapixels and packing 8K video capture, the A7S III resolutely sticks with big pixels and a 4K cap. Its task is simple: to be the best 4K video camera it can be, excelling when it comes to high ISO, low light capture. Being a Sony camera, the A7S III also delivers an excellent, customizable autofocus system, with 759 phase detection autofocus points and eye tracking across animals and humans that claims to be 30% faster than on its predecessor. For starters, one of the custom buttons above the grip has been swapped out for a large record button, setting the scene for this camera's strong emphasis on video shooting. Despite the A7S III not having an official weather sealing rating, Sony has assured us that it can handle drizzle, and all the ports are under rubberized covers, on the left-hand side of the camera when it's held lens forward. We're still scratching our heads as to why Sony didn't introduce this sooner, but the fact remains that it's a very welcome inclusion, although one thing we don't understand is why the display isn't in the 16:9 aspect ratio given that the A7S III is a video-focused camera. Putting video to the side for a second, the A7S III's bright, sharp viewfinder is a photographer's dream, with crisp clarity, excellent coverage and ample brightness. And whether you're shooting stills or video, the Sony A7S III handles well because it offers so many controls and top-end specs. If you're a seasoned Canon user, the grip might feel a touch claw clasp inducing at first, though the A7S III still pulls through a fair amount of comfort and weight to counterbalance most lenses. The dials are all in the right places, and there are no less than 3 ways to navigate menus, so while this is a seriously comprehensive camera, the learning curve is anything but steep, whatever system you're coming from. One of the first things you'll notice about the Sony A7S III is how well it performs in low light. Ramping up the ISO is not a stressful experience. In fact, it's incredibly gratifying, with the camera able to handle high sensitivity mind-bogglingly well. That sensor resolution means the A7S III can't record 6K video, let alone 8K, instantly putting it behind the Canon EOS R5 on that front. As with the Sony ZV-1, we had no issues recording for in excess of 30 minutes, with the only limiting factors being the card capacity, battery life and heat, and the fact that we never experienced any overheating warnings or issues on the pre-production A7S III we tested bodes well for the final retail unit. Autofocus for photo and video benefits from 759 phase detection focus points, not to mention advanced eye tracking that's 30% faster than on previous Sony cameras. For video, specifically, Sony gives you beautifully granular control over your focus speed. Sony partly puts this improved focusing down to the sensor's sensitivity performance, enabling the A7S III to identify subjects in lower light than cameras with inferior sensitivity. When it comes to power, the new Z battery delivers what Sony claims to be a 60% improvement over the performance of the A7S II's NPFW50 up to 95 minutes of video capture, on paper. While we experienced a fair amount of variability in our review unit's battery life, it comfortably captured 4K video for in excess of an hour in every test we conducted, which is excellent compared to much of the competition. What's also fantastic is that Sony doesn't impose its shiny new, ultra-fast, ultra-expensive memory card format on you, but it does support it nonetheless. You only really need the ultra-high-speed CF Express cards for Sony's S&Q recording format at 4K resolution. With other Sony hangovers missing from the A7S III buffer issues, clunky menus and the lack of an articulating screen, this camera makes us, as camera enthusiasts and professionals, feel heard. That said, the A7S III soars ahead, with virtually no visible image noise despite the footage having been captured in the dead of night, while the Pocket Cinema camera captures totally unusable, grainy footage. While the comparison footage was shot on a tripod, the rest of our time with the A7S III was spent capturing handheld video in middling light. With ISO settings ranging from ISO 2000 to 4000 delivering results that look nearer to ISO 200 to 400, the A7S III is a liberating camera to use. Sony cameras have historically struggled in this department, but the A7S III's new sensor and faster readout speeds result in the jelly effect being hardly noticeable, unless you're a seriously aggressive panner. All this talk of great focus performance and noise handling suggests that this is more than just a video camera, and it is. In turn, if you're a wedding photographer cum videographer, and need a camera that can capture mood across both, then provided you're prepared to sacrifice pixel power, the A7S III is a top performer. Between the fantastic high ISO performance, IBIS and electronic image stabilization, handheld shooting on the A7S III is a great experience too. You need stellar low-light performance. The Sony A7S III combines a new sensor and processor with beautiful image processing and excellent dynamic range, to deliver class-leading low-light performance. You shoot long video clips with its humble 4K capture, there's less strain on the Sony A7S III's sensor and processor, and in turn, we didn't experience any overheating issues when testing out the camera, nor were there recording limitations. You need a lot of pixels whether you're talking about photos or videos. The Sony A7S III captures them with comparatively low resolution when compared to the Panasonic S1H, Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K or the EOS R5, which climb up to 6K, 6K and 8K respectively. You want maximum bang for your buck. If you need an affordable 4K camera, you can get better value options than the A7S III, especially if you know you'll be shooting primarily in well-lit conditions.